what you're really strong in can be what you're really weak in also. And we know this from the Bible. We have Abraham, and you know he had a whole bunch of tests. So finally, after he was like 100 years old, he gets a kid. And now, 30 years later, 35, 30, 39 years later, 6, 4, 50 years, 40 years later, God comes to him and says, Abe, I want you to kill your kid. Well, we know up to that point that Abraham was known as Mr. Kind. He brought kindness down into the world. He was super kind to everybody. So now all of a sudden, God comes to him and says, I want you to kill your kid. And what does Abe say? He says, I don't do that. That's not me. Right? Oh, you got to talk about this. Okay, sorry. He doesn't think of himself as kind. He doesn't look at himself as a kind person. He looks at himself as a servant of Hashem, a servant of God. So if God asks, I can do. So he was a tzaddik, he was a special person. He didn't limit himself. Our challenge is that we limit ourselves. If we're really into details, who's the detail person? Who's handwriting? No, you were the other person.
But I'm a detail. So am I.
Oh, but I saw you. There was somebody else detail. Okay.
She was.
So, but you don't have this situation. So the other detail person. Who's the other detail? Forget it. You left. Okay. I forgot who you are. See, I'm not a detailed person. Okay, I'm going to talk about you, but you're not sort of like this. So don't say it's not me. Okay. The problem with details is that somebody who likes details can't get enough of them. It's hard to move. That they want to know another detail. They want to know something else before they can go do something. Also, people who like details get upset with themselves if they miss a detail. They don't like spontaneity, that they made a mistake. Now my friend here, just because he writes like this and he writes fast, and we'll talk about this later, he moves. He likes to do things with what he knows. So he's like, he doesn't stand still. Correct? Right. Over here, you like, this is not you.
No, yes.
Give me back. Who's this? You, okay. You're not a large handwriting, sort of in the medium, but large handwriting people who like to go do things sometimes do it and not well planned out. You like to plan things out, so again, I'm not talking about you. You have other situations, so we'll talk about that later, okay?
It's been a bad day.
So people who like large sometimes need to slow it down and get involved in details, which may be difficult, but it expands you as a person. Are there any questions? Okay, so now we've talked about how you put the words on a piece of paper, where you put them. Now we've talked about size. Okay? So now, let's talk about ink. You never thought of that one, because a lot of people say, well, I want to write differently for you. Fine. What am I looking for? I don't know. Neatness.
How much stock do you put in size? Meaning, you frame the person, you got the general picture of this person is a detail-oriented person, non-detail-oriented person. You can also have somebody who writes big and they write small.
Fine. There are 30 things I look for. Anybody here have a complicated personality? Wow, it's Milwaukee. I thought there was just a lot of beer here. So, since we're complicated and we're all unique, you need to look at the whole handwriting and see what really moves for you. And like my friend over here, who does write small, but he moves. He's a doer. So it wasn't a good example for me, but the other one I had in my hand was a little better. But he moves. So like he does other things. He has a complex personality that he writes small, but he does a whole bunch of other things. How he deals with people, how he deals with pressure, how he deals with how he energizes himself, how he deals in relationship, how he expresses himself, how he deals with his intellect. That's all, you find all that in the handwriting. So, now we're going to deal with emotions. I want somebody who writes really heavy, like a lot of ink, She looks at her husband. Does he? Is he afraid of, anybody write really heavy? Like a lot of ink. Or somebody writes really light, soft. I saw you already. It could be the pen. Anybody write really soft?
I don't know if this considered soft or heavy.
Let's see.
It's missing the L on the page.
Fair. Okay, there we go. Okay,
This is heavy.
heavy. I need a heavy.
What's heavy mean?
Except, how old are you? 13. I'll read your handwriting, but I don't want you
I think this is
to
heavy.
look at you and a bunch of old people because they think they know more than you.
Shady, let me see.
Okay. Anybody,
Press on.
who? Obviously, that's how you write heavy. You don't write heavy,
Hers
right?
looks heavy, her signature.
So now, okay. So, there are two kinds of heavy. There's two kinds of pressure. There's how much you press on the piece of paper, and if your hand is steady or not. 'Cause I had an interesting situation. Twins, I would say two twins, but only one set of twins. Identical twins came to me. They were, I'm guessing, 20, 21 years old. Unfortunately, they had an abusive father who supposedly has now got himself a little back on track, had a bunch of kids, and these two kids suffered a lot of abuse from him. They both handled the abuse differently, but the same. One writes really heavy. When you write really heavy, it's like mail. You're gonna mess with me, I'm gonna mess with you. You can't hurt my feelings. They may have feelings underneath, but the front is like tough. The other one went very feminine, very soft writing. You mess with me, I'm gonna cry as soon as you look at me. I won't be any fun. You won't be able to get any enjoyment out of bothering me because I'm such an easy mark. So they both accomplished the same thing. The father left them alone. The older one became tough. Father didn't want to deal with her because she would mouth back to him. The younger one would cry so quickly that it wasn't any fun, so the father went on to another kid. Now, I must admit, none of these are heavy. All of these are pretty normal. Now, what's normal? What I mean by normal? How the world was created, how we exist, is by breathing in and out. The world was created with this kind of motion, a give and a take, a receiver and a giver, someone who knows and someone who needs to know. So we're like that also. That we're not totally on. We kind of give and we take. The person who writes heavy, completely heavy, is trying to be on all the time. And if you try to like bust his bubble, he'll let you know about it. So there's a natural flow, like when you write an L, you're heavy on the upstroke and you're light on the downstroke. You write an A, you're heavy on the up and you're lighter on the backside. So when you see that in like, the three samples that I have here are basically relatively flowy kind of people. They kind of like give and take. They're not, they are, in their personality here, they're able to be who they like in public and deal with other people and be nice about it. Okay, who is this? Okay, so now, I talked about being with people and doing things with people. There are three angles. There's able to, I know you have a good example of that. Alan over here, you see how he's trending to the right over here, he's moving this way. The goal in handwriting is to get over here. This is the goal. So you see how he's moving like this? If he was bent a little more, it'd be like he'd be in my face. He'd be like all over me. But he's bent a little bit. Means like he's moving and he's moving with people. He's like, you probably do something with people. What do you do?
Business coach.
Can I have an applause? Okay, no. So, but you can see that he's anxious to be with people and he wants to know details, what we said before. Anybody write straight up and down? Oh yeah, this one. Okay. So, it's not that she doesn't like people, but she's thinking more. He's reacting. Remember when I had his handwriting, I said it's a small handwriting, but he doesn't get bogged down in the details because he really likes to do something. He's really on the move. It's hard to find him. He's moving. Alex?
Alex.
Just spell it wrong.
No, I didn't.
So, Alex has another mode of thinking, of being. She wants to think first. She wants to make sure that everything's okay. Alan over here sometimes moves a little too fast sometimes and gets himself in a little trouble and has to backtrack a little bit. Okay, well, don't admit it, Alan. I know it's your business and you may have some clients here. I understand that. So Alex over here is trying to be safe. So she's thinking before she's acting. And the third one I don't want to talk about is a person who leans to the left. They're very cautious or more self-contained. Some of the people who've been abused or whatever can lean to the left. So now, we have space, we have location, how the margins are, we have size, we have slant, and we have color, how heavy they are. Now we're starting to get an interesting picture on people, on who a person is. So now let's say that you're looking for, anybody here a business owner? Anybody here independently wealthy? Sorry, Rabbi.
I know them
So, say you have a project and you want to go do something. And you want to start from scratch. And you all volunteered to help in making the fair. Now, if you pick the larger handwriting people to do the detail work, I think we may have problems. If you pick the people who write small and really detail-oriented, not caring what they do with the details, to do the detailed work, and put the larger handwriting people with the people who are going to set it up and go do it, people with a bigger upper margin who have respect for people, you can put them behind the booth because they'll be nice to the people who come and try to buy things. So you can see that each one of us, if we get put in the place that we're supposed to be, it works in our personality. There's a flow. There's a reason why who we are. How about friendliness? There are 3 different kinds of ways of telling how you can be friendly. We're going to look at one of them. And in this way is also how we get energy. Each one of us we move around and we function because we have to energize ourselves. How many people have heard that I feel burnt out? People feel burnt out because they don't know how to treat themselves to go back and get energy. And we energize ourselves differently. Anybody write the words, if you take the letter M, if your words are closer than the letter M, could I see your paper? If your words, if the M is bigger than the space between most of your words. If the M is smaller than the space between your words, can I see that sample? Yeah, but if I haven't seen your paper yet, I would like to see that, okay?
The space between the words. Your M is like this. And how many spaces is a quarter of a second, quarter of an inch.
You write with both hands? Cool.
Better on the left hand.
Left is better.
For writing.
Okay. Look at the top over here. This is a good example of relatively close. She's not as close as she could be, but if you look, if the people are words, her space between the words is relatively close. Ready? You like to be around people. In fact, it's important for you to be around people. And in fact, if I said, oh, it's 5 after 8, you're the person that wins the cabin on top of the mountain with no cell phone, no phones, no just books, no video, no nothing, just by yourself with a week's worth of food over there. You won't see anybody for a whole week. Exciting, huh? Because she gets her energy from being around people. If she spent a week up in the mountains by herself, she would come back exhausted. Because she gets a drain if there's nobody around. You know, anybody have teenage kids in the house that teenage kid walks and been in school all day. 15 minutes, 5 minutes walking by herself, she gets inside the house and she has to call somebody. Didn't you talk to that person all day? And in fact, she didn't just call one person. When she hangs up there, she's talking to somebody else. And sometimes the phone doesn't even ring because you're just on caller ID now. Because this person really needs to be in relationship. Because in relationship is where she gets her energy. Now, who wrote Far Apart? I didn't see that paper yet. Okay, can I see that woman behind you? Okay. So, Ruth, would you like that cabin? Yeah, Ruth can handle that cabin. So you want to switch? So, you see, Ruth, it's not that Ruth doesn't like people. You like people, right? Especially the lady next to you, right? Ruth likes people, but she needs to give herself a gift of her own special time in order to re-energize herself. I'm not sure what you do, by the way. I don't think you read much.
What?
You don't read, do you? Not much.
What am I wearing?
I didn't ask you that.
No, I used to read for pleasure a lot, but now I don't have enough time. Yeah, I love to read.
But you don't read now.
As much as I.
So what do you do? What do you do that? Like, you do something. Cook.
Do something, wash dishes.
She's a good cook.
Huh?
But she does something else. I wanna see if she does what you do.
I don't know.
Play the violin.
I was gonna say some art, but I don't see art. I just see.
No, I'm not visual at all.
Right.
I can't see a thing.
So Ruth needs to do something private and special for herself in order to energize herself. Because if the Ruths don't do that, they burn out. If the Ruths follow Yehudis and always connecting, Ruth would be become exhausted. And she wouldn't know how to deal with it. So each one of us needs to learn how we operate. And the third type is the person who's in the middle. Like the M is about the same size as the distance. Yehudis is sort of close to that. Yehudis can go either way, but she tends to like to be in relationships. She's a little closer. But in general, the third person is someone who is more balanced, who can go either way, can be with people, cannot be with people. Energy is not an issue for that person.
husband considered to be a people?
Excuse me?
Is a husband considered to be a people, or it's a separate subject?
That's all relative.
She asked if a husband is considered a person, not a people. If a husband is considered a person,
You're saying that to be
A
called
husband-
people, so
a
I'm just
husband-
wondering, is they using the same terminology?
I'm the one supposed to tell the joke. Yeah, that in relationship, it does go like that. That sometimes the husband or wife needs private time, and it's essential. Yeah, and yes, it's not an excuse when a husband comes home from a busy day, and you had a busy day, and you want to touch base with each other. He may say, I need 5 minutes, but he can't use the whole night for himself, obviously. So there has to be some give and take between the couple. But you each need your own needs to be fulfilled, and there's enough time to do that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have a question.
You okay?
So basically, based what we said about the barbarian,
Could you stand up and say that?
well, could be that sometimes at certain time in life, the handwriting is being changed based on different things that happen to people.
Right.
Or like, let's say if she was a big reader before, maybe a year ago, her handwriting would have been different than now that she is reading because something
Correct.
changed in her life.
Big-
So handwriting can change as it goes.
That's why I need to know how old you are, because your handwriting will change. I suspect your handwriting is probably smaller.
Well,
When she was a reader.
sometimes the handwriting can change within 1 month if the person has been through some major disaster, no?
100%, and you can see that in the handwriting.
That's what I'm
I haven't
saying.
talked about that yet.
Oh, okay, that's one question. And the other question I had,
Everybody hear the question?
okay, and the other question I had, do you believe that with young children, you can work on the personality through the handwriting and teach them just write the letter bigger or write the letter more neat or work on it? And through the fact that they're focusing so hard in the handwriting,